Hello and welcome to our webinar. I'm Dr. Reed from the Infertility Center in Mansfield, Pennsylvania. And today we're going to be discussing My Mother Never Told Me, 3 unladylike conversations that every lady should have. This whole webinar came off of the idea that a lot of women that come to me keep making comments, hey, I wish I would have known, I wish I would have been told this, it would have helped if I would have known this information when I was younger, I had no idea that what I was doing when I was an adolescent would affect me now and my overall health. So this whole conversation has stemmed from interest that I've had with clients in wanting this information prior to them having problems. Honestly, it's a great idea because a lot of the conditions that I work with could be avoided if women knew how to properly take care of themselves. Now, I don't know how your whole experience went when you transitioned from being a girl to a woman. It's different for all of us. Some of us have parents that want to explain, almost overly explain, the details of puberty and all of the different dynamics that are involved. And then there's some of us that have parents where less is more. They don't want to talk about it. They kind of want us to learn our experience from either friends or TV or just overhearing things, Googling things now, I'm sure what a lot of girls are doing. And so we all have different exposures to womanhood. And these are 3 conversations, no matter if you've already had an in-depth conversation with your mother growing up or you did not, that I hope you find valuable. These are some basic things that I will be definitely increasing the content on each specific topic down the road because we could talk at length about each of these. So keep your eyes open for future webinars or future articles that will be discussing these and giving more resources. But firstly, my mother never told me to not have a superiority complex with my pelvis and my urogenital systems. Now, I really mean this. I, like most women, have an issue where anything below the navel, which is considered, actually even in anatomy, it's considered inferior. And a lot of us have this relationship where we're disconnected at a time in our life or throughout most of our adult life with the lower portion, vital portion of our body. You see, in anatomy, there's the superior aspect, and below the midline of the navel, there's the inferior aspect of our anatomical position. Anything closer to the head is cranial, or it's superior to anything that's caudal or inferior. And that's really hard. Even in anatomy, we consider the bladder, the vagina, the uterus, the ovaries, fallopian tubes, the rectum to be inferior to all the other organs. Not only in anatomy, but in a lot of us in day-to-day living. And we should not have a superiority complex regarding our pelvis and those vital organs and glands that we use. Most of us have thoughts toward our pelvic structure and all the contents therein to be more dirty or itchy, painful, stinky, awkward. And those tend to lead to thoughts that tend to be more of embarrassment, frustrating, confusing, self-loathing, resenting, or even dreading. And those type of thoughts to those very critical structures affects how much we pay attention to them and how much they're trying to communicate to us. See, our body's constantly giving us signals, and sometimes they can become symptoms if they get too far by being missed that there's an issue. And we need to pay attention to those, but when we are looking through the lens of resentment or frustration or embarrassment, to anything that's happening on the lower portion of our bodies, then many times problems are missed. And just because something is common does not mean that it's normal. So in future talks together, we'll discuss that more frequently as to what to look for. Just because another woman is experiencing similar things does not mean that it's a healthy biological function. So that's the first thing. Don't have a superiority complex with the lower half of your body. I wish that I was told that. I wish I was told that that could even happen. That there could be this disconnect. A lot of times when women have painful menstruation, or they have prolonged menstruation, or they don't have it at all, they feel like they're lacking in their femininity. Those can affect the dynamics that you have with your body. Some women have chronic UTIs, and so they have chronic pain with that, and embarrassment if they have leakage issues. Some women have irritable bowel syndrome, or they have a ton of constipation, or just the opposite, a lot of diarrhea. And their body's trying to tell them something. But we get caught up on the feeling or emotion that we have with these bodily functions rather than having a clear view of what's truly going on. And that leads me to the next topic that I wish my mom would have told me. It's gonna sound kind of funny, I'm gonna admit it right off the bat, but I always tell women to look into the bowl of truth, the commode. So what you leave actually in the toilet directly indicates what your body's experiencing, processing, and what it's currently dealing with. If there's an infection, if there's a lack of good bacteria in your body, all of those things are huge. And many times, we use the restroom as quickly as we can. We cover it up with toilet paper and flush it away, never even thinking that it's actual data for us to see of what's going on inside of us. It's a reflection of us. So it's important. It's important to be aware of what goes into that bowl of truth, because the odors, the frequency that you use it, the colors and the textures of what's in there actually is a huge indicator for your metabolism, your reproductive health, your urogenital system, and how you're cleaning or detoxifying yourself. All of those and more are important, and the bowl of truth is a great way of seeing something that you might not be feeling. For example, did you know that a healthy menstruation should never have clots that are more dense than tissue paper? Than wet tissue paper. Imagine wet, red tissue paper. That's the density that we should have for any type of clots that are expelling out of our uterus during menstruation. If it's anything other than that, if it's more rubbery, if it's thick, if it's coagulated, that's an issue. So look into the bowl of truth and see what's going on in your body and what's coming out of it. Another thing is that since December of 2015, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists established that the fifth vital sign for a woman is their menstruation. So we really need to pay attention to that, because our hormonal balance with our menstrual cycle affects us not only now, but can affect how we age and what happens to our body down the road. So it's really important. It is a fifth vital sign. The history of how you were menstruating as a younger girl or as a woman or postpartum, that all can give valuable information. So pay attention. Don't just wad it up and throw it away, or just flush it away, because your body's telling you what it needs or what it's lacking or what it has too much of. And we'll go over those in more detail in future articles and videos together. Another thing, the third thing that I wish every woman would be able to have as far as a conversation with their mother, is that they need to not only treat themselves with respect, but treat their pelvis and the contents with respect. It's a whole nother level of self-respect. A lot of us, because we have these preconceived notions of needing to be sterile, which is actually you don't ever want to be sterile in your lower pelvis region. That's actually really harmful and very vulnerable and susceptible to further issues. But we have this concept, I need to smell like plumeria or jasmine or a waterfall, so I'm going to use powders and talcs and scents and sprays and douche and do all these other things to my body to make me smell or appear clean. And that's just the opposite of what we should be doing. Actually, a lot of women, if they have a healthy body, should not even be using soap. They should be using warm water on a frequent basis to cleanse themselves. The vagina itself is a self-cleansing organ. It's actually cleaner than our mouths. So if we're listening to our body and we're making healthy choices, then we shouldn't go overboard with compensating and creating more problems, more vulnerabilities here. There's this balance between good bacteria and bad bacteria, and once you start washing them away with soap that are antibacterial in nature, that can disrupt that balance, creating further issues, creating a tendency of having UTIs and vaginal discharge issues and vaginal infections, yeast infections. So in order to avoid that, we really need to pay attention with how we're cleansing ourselves. So respect yourself. Don't go overboard. Don't feel like you have to become sterile, because that's the exact opposite as far as what you're supposed to have as a human being. Another thing is how we sit directly affects how our organs are aligned in our body. And if you work at a desk job, or if you're a student, or if you have to sit for prolonged periods of time, your posture and how you sit affects the contents and affects how the uterus can fully expel the menstrual materials. It affects how the bladder can properly fill or not fill. It can affect how the colon properly fills or doesn't fill. So we want to make sure that when we're sitting not on our tailbone, but on our sits bones, the very bottom of your hips. Like if you were going to bend down and sit on a curb, that's how you want to sit, not on your actual tailbone or the coccyx and sacrum. Many times we easily displace those, not dislocate, but displace those, and then that affects a lot of other things as well. Not only the function of our pelvis and hips and how well they work, but also how our cerebrospinal fluid is pumped from the ventricles inside our brain all the way down to the tailbone and all the way back up. So to keep your nourishment of your spinal cord, it's really important to make sure that we're not, displacing the tailbone. If you're interested in learning more about proper posture for our pelvis and all of the contents, then check out the link below for a guide that's called the Ladies Posture Checklist. I bet you find that to be a little interesting. And there you have it. My mother never told me 3 unladylike conversations that every lady should have. Don't have a superiority complex with your pelvis and the urogenital organs and structures inside. Look into the bowl of truth to see how well you're functioning, and treat your pelvis and all of its contents with respect. Thanks for joining us for tonight's webinar. Again, check out the guide if you're interested, and please share this if you find any of this material to be helpful so other women can learn. Have a great day.